Welcome back to another episode of Mind, Body, Spirit. I'm Dr. Kayte, and today's guest is one of the original WWE wrestlers, and she was also a huge hit on the social media platform MySpace, which some of you might remember her from. She's done many things since then, and she's here today to talk about a very serious topic related to her breast implants. Please welcome to the show, Miss Bobbi Billard. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I've been saying it wrong all these years, and I remember you were like one of the original hot girls on MySpace.
Thank you so much.
I mean, that was a huge thing. Well, thank you for coming. Welcome, first of all.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I would love to start by talking about that because I think it was a really big deal, and something that when you told me the story before, it was fascinating. So do you want to start with that?
Sure. So back in the day of MySpace, they showed you on the top friends list by when you joined.
Okay.
So I was one of the early adopters of MySpace, so I showed up high on everyone's friends list. So I acquired quite a bit of friends just from showing up so high. People would see my picture and they would click on my profile and add me as a friend, and I accepted everybody. And so I wound up with 1.5 million friends on MySpace.
That is amazing. And that was before, nowadays, lots of people have millions of followers because the industry is so saturated with users. But back then it was like it was a really big deal.
Yes, we were like the old school Instagram celebrities, I guess you would say.
Yeah, and what you were telling me about how when you would post things, like what would happen.
Yeah, so when I would post what was called a bulletin, it was like basically like, you could talk about whatever on there. And I would post links to certain websites and I would crash their servers because I would send so much traffic to them.
That's amazing. Yeah, because people didn't have access to that type of content as widely as they do now, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I would imagine that was very formative for you as like a young woman in kind of your identity and showing like a certain image, right? Would you say that's true?
Yes.
Do you want to speak about that?
And it helped promote my career quite a bit. I received like a lot of opportunity just based upon my MySpace profile because, you could cast some random girl in something, or you could cast me who had a built-in following to promote whatever it was that I was associated with. So
right. Yeah. And so when you were a WWE wrestler, was that before MySpace or after?
It was actually during, but more of the early part of MySpace.
Okay. So tell me how that happened and what that was like.
So, for starters, I was on a TV show called Wow, Women of Wrestling. And so I did that show. It got canceled. And then I ended up working a convention for somebody who was involved with WWE.
Okay.
And all of the models at the convention, we got the opportunity after work to go and race cars. And so everybody was like, oh, I'm going to do this. This is exciting. And so I was the only one who didn't chicken out. And then I was beating some of the guys. And so they were like, wow, you're ballsy. We like you. And then I got to talking with him and I told him that I used to wrestle. And he's like, oh my gosh, you look like that and you can wrestle too? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, send me a copy of your tape. And I thought, well, is this guy just wanting to see me wrestle?
Yeah.
Or he's like, I'm going to hook you up with WWE. And I was like, okay, well, I'll send him a copy. And so I went to all this effort. I burned a DVD on my computer and I took my old school VHS tapes.
Wow.
And I inputted them onto the computer and I made this like promotional tape of all my wrestling.
Okay.
And then he really did hook me up with WWE. He was legit.
So the wrestling tape, what type of wrestling was that? Was that still kind of like that cinematic wrestling?
Yes.
Or it was,
just like professional wrestling, like what you see with the divas on WWE, except there was a show called Wow, Women of Wrestling.
Okay.
Back in the 80s, there was a show called Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
Okay.
Probably way before your time, but
I don't remember it, but I think we're not that different in age. But I was watching you on MySpace. Maybe I'm just a little bit younger.
Yeah. So Glow was first, and then came Wow. It's
Okay.
the same producers of Glow.
Okay.
And then, so I was the only one from that show to move on to the big leagues, WWE.
And did you ever do regular wrestling before you got involved with WoW? Okay.
No, you did the real wrestling, I did the face.
Yeah, it's funny though that we both did wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have breast implants when I was a wrestler. I don't know how that would have affected me.
Yeah, I did. And I had the textured silicone, which I popped my implants. I ruptured them.
So when did you get your first set of implants? How old were you?
I was 18 years old. Yes.
Okay, and that was pre-MySpace.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
right. Because you were pretty voluptuous when those MySpace. I remember.
Yeah, I always had them. So yeah, I pretty much have had them most of my adult life. So yeah.
So now this is a topic that I know is really close to your heart and close to mine, and you're here as an advocate for women, and you're speaking out against this. But you've had a really unique road with these. You had 9 surgeries.
Yes,
is that right?
That's correct, and nothing but problems. I think my body never really liked them.
And is it 10 with explant, or was that the 9th?
So yeah, that would make 10 with explant. But actually, I had one of the complications, so I had to have a 10th breast augmentation in one breast because I had a seroma. So, so that would be 10 and 11.
that is like unbelievable to me that they kept failing so many times that it required new surgeries. And I would imagine because your career was very focused on your look, right?
Yes,
Looking
exactly.
a certain way, that there was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I was known as the Pamela Anderson type in Hollywood. So it was every Pam Anderson type audition I would get sent on, and it was either me or this other girl that looked like her that would book the job. So
really,
yeah. So it's like you can't be Pam Anderson without the boobs. You know, it's kind of went hand in hand. So
before we get into like the nitty gritty details of your illnesses and the complications, like I just want to sort of hit on the emotional side of it, because that's a huge deal that your identity was really wrapped up in that. And I want to know how you feel now and what that means for you now.
That's just the weird thing, is that all my friends were really worried about me. They thought, oh my gosh, she's had, these boobs all of her life, and she's made her career this way, and her identity is going to be wrapped up in these implants. But it hasn't bothered me at all. Maybe it just hasn't hit me yet.
You look amazing though. I mean, like you're still very like well endowed. Like you look really good. Like this is proportional. I'm really happy.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it at all. I really kind of like it. I don't know. I feel like I'm more streamlined.
Yeah, and like, do you feel like more healthy now? Like, what's going on? Tell me about.
That's the other thing.
Should we go back to? Let's talk about the story you told me.
Okay.
About the implant that was coming out.
Okay. Oh, the bad.
Or if you want, thing. However you want to tell the story, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. So what happened was last summer, I noticed that my breast implant was red and warm to the touch. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I have an infection.
Right.
But I mean, it's been several years since I've had my surgery. So I don't know if that's even possible. Like, can you get an infection that's just sitting there simmering for years?
But yes.
So,
but I understand the logic.
So yeah, I went to the doctor and I said, I think there's something wrong. And so they did blood work on me. They tested my blood, and that turned up nothing. Like my white blood cell count was really good, apparently. Yeah. And he told me that I had some of the healthiest blood work that they'd seen in like all month. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm just imagining things, And then, so 6 months later, I just, went about my day-to-day life, and then I noticed it was warm, red to the touch, and then it was like really doing something, like something looked wrong. It looked like it was swollen along my scar line, and it looked like my skin was getting like crepey a little bit. Like it looked like my body was like pushing the implant out through my skin.
Wow.
And so I went back to the doctor, and they said, okay, now we see what you're talking about. Here, take this antibiotic. And so I was taking the antibiotic, and I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. I have to get another surgery to fix this.
Right.
So I contacted a plastic surgeon and did a consultation with like one of the top revision guys in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
And he said, oh my gosh, no, that antibiotic is not gonna fix that. You need to come to my office and have that drained. And so I literally drove there that night
Okay.
for an appointment the next day. He fit me in. He said,
It was an emergency.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
He's like, you need to drain that. What's gonna end up happening is, I've seen this before, and it literally pushed through her skin, all the tissue erodes, and
this was 2 years post-op.
like 2 or 3, I think
3
3
years.
years.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 years is usually the mark where they start to go bad on me.
And you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, so I think it had been 3 years. So anyways, he drained me, and then he sewed me back up, and then somehow that incision reopened again, and I ended up putting a bandage on there so that I could shower, because he told me not to get it wet.
Okay.
And I left it covered for a couple days, and I started to feel really, really sick. Like, I was nauseous. I couldn't like stand up. I was shaking. I was like hot and cold, and I felt really awful.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, maybe, it's infected or something. I need to see what's going on in here. So I took it off, and all this yellow liquid came out. It was.
And this was a silicone implant? Was it regular?
Yeah, I had the gummy bears, that
And you were-
Mentor memory gel.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you had the best, newest, greatest
yeah,
implant
always.
that exists.
always.
So why
best
would you have?
doctors, best everything, and still my body just did not like these things at all.
Then after that was explant, and you decided to remove.
Well,
is that
yeah,
right?
he
Okay.
fit me in the following week, and I had emergency surgery to explant my breast implants.
And so tell me, how did you start learning about like some of the other complications, like the systemic problems, and then when did you relate that to your own health issues? And
Well, I had headaches. I was tired. I had some of the signs of BII, and I was aware of it because I had a friend who explanted.
right.
But it wasn't. I wasn't like truly like ill like some of these women.
Right.
But when the doctor told me that my labs came back as no
Perfect.
growth, no growth.
That's a
There's
little
no
shocking.
infection.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what is this? This is something. And I have friends who are in the medical industry, and they said, that's either an infection or you're having an extreme autoimmune response to your implants.
We should also point out that they did serology on that fluid, and you said
Yeah.
it came back normal
yeah,
as well.
no growth for anaerobic
Yeah,
bacteria
so that's
twice.
really interesting.
Twice.
That's
so,
really interesting.
So, what's that then? If it's not an infection, then what is it? What's causing this?
Yeah, or perhaps it's an infection that wasn't tested for, or just like to point out that these diagnostic tests are not like the Bible. They're not the gold. They're not everything. you
Yeah.
know? And it's important to know that your intuition means a lot more than whether a test is negative or positive for anything, right? Because that's what most of these women are experiencing, is that their doctors are telling them that they're normal and there's nothing wrong with them.
Exactly.
And you're like a perfect case of that being wrong. I mean, just 6 months later, it's
Yeah.
pushing out of your body.
Exactly. So, and I think if that's not an autoimmune response, an extreme autoimmune response to implants, I don't know what is,
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So you explanted, and then I know like sometimes it doesn't immediately feel better. So tell me like where are you now?
Well, where I am now with everything is I've been having really like worse joint pain. Actually, it's weird because so on one side he did the end block because I knew about that and I asked for the end block, in which they take the whole capsule out. You're familiar with,
Right. Of course. Yeah.
For the viewers at home.
Yeah. End block is very important.
Yeah.
They can get information about that probably from your Instagram or from other people who are mine and the implant illness warrior women, right?
Yeah. So they stress that you need to have this end block, which
Yes.
takes out the whole capsule and all the material within, so you're not putting all of that gunk back in your body.
Right. Exactly.
But then on the left side, where it was trying to force itself out, and I had the open wound, he said that he was unable to do the end block because my tissue inside was mush.
Okay.
And so he did what's called a subtotal capsulectomy.
Okay.
So now I'm concerned that I have more of the stuff that he may not have gotten out.
Right.
And maybe my body's processing this and causing all this like joint pain, because I literally feel like I'm 90 years old in my joints. Like I get up, I have to like kind of walk off like some hip pain, and I'm always like moving my hands and my wrist
Right.
around because it hurts in in my joints. A
Yes.
lot.
So I think that it's definitely possible. Getting all of that capsule tissue out is very important and it's worth investigating, but it's also not uncommon to have an exacerbation of symptoms after explant because the circulating chemicals and heavy metals are leaving the body, and as they're leaving rapidly, as you've removed the source of them, that can sometimes exacerbate symptoms. So we'll have to monitor that closely and make sure you're supported through that process. Did you want to talk a little bit about like maybe some advice that you would give? So I think it's really tremendous, your history and the fact that your career and like identity was really centered around implants, and like I just wonder what advice you would give. Do you have regrets? No regrets?
I mean, they say not to regret anything because you learn from things, but I just wish I could talk to my 18-year-old self and tell me that you are enough. You don't need these implants. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with my body now, and I don't miss them at all. So. And I've talked to a lot of women. A lot of people are DMing me about, their implants, and some people are trapped. Models that I know, they're still making their money based upon how they look, and they feel trapped, but they feel sick and they don't know what to do. And so I'm just trying to kind of give advice to people and talk to them and make them aware of the fact that these implants, you're supposed to get an MRI every 3 years, or after the first 3 years, and every 2 years additionally. And these tests are very expensive. They're not usually covered by your insurance because it's an elective surgery. So that's like $2,200. So also, breast implants are not lifetime devices. I was told that they were. I was told that they're indestructible, that you could run them over with a car, but that's not true. You're supposed to keep going in and get surgery every 10 years. And then it's like, think about, would you want to keep, at 40, at 50, at 60, at 70? When does it end?
Right. And we also don't have long-term studies of them in the body. So you can run them over with a car and they're fine. But a car is not the heat of the body. It's not over time. It doesn't have an immune system, which is individual, right? It varies from person to person.
Yeah. And then you were saying like a lot of this reminds you of like the cigarette companies and how they were like, these don't cause cancer. And you were saying, well, with cigarettes, you get to sleep at night and at least have some time off from smoking. You're not smoking 24 hours a day. These are in your body.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constantly burdening the liver and all of the detox organs. Right, exactly. There's no break.
And they're a huge foreign object right in there, right next to your heart and lungs.
Yeah. I know we're sending the same message over and over, but it's amazing because new women every day message me, and I'm sure you that don't know about it. So I'm really happy that you came. And do you have any other advice that you want to give before we wrap up?
Yeah, just if you have any questions, contact me online. I'm at Bobbi Billard everywhere, and I'd be glad to take my time to educate people and just I'm no judgments. I'm very, very much for free will and whatever you want to do, but at least informed consent. I think that women should be given.
Yes, and you're just to be clear, you're offering your services to women as a friend and a counselor and an advocate, and you're not profiting from this at all.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not gaining anything, but just a friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and I'm sure many women will take you up on that. Yeah. Well, this has been a really amazing episode. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Kayte. This is Bobbi, and thank you so much for joining us.